Hello, good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining. It's Andy and Luann here, which is your favorite monthly double act now. Thank you so much for being part of this. I'm actually quite shocked at how many people have registered today and how many people are on. So thank you. The chat, use the chat. And last time, and morning, Mary, morning, Samantha. Morning. Last time the chat had like 200 odd questions, so it's great, and people started answering each other's questions in the chat. So I love it when it kind of feels like there's a community here. So amazing. Lots to cover today. So we missed a month, didn't we, Luann? So we missed December.
Yes.
So we're back in the game, but for today we have had our coffees because we're ready to go through December and January's updates. So there's a lot to cover, but we're going to aim to do it in 45 minutes so we can do questions. So we're going to dive straight into it. So let me just go ahead and share my screen. So give me a second. And there we go.
Thank you to everyone that says hello. It's so nice to know that there are actually people watching. Sometimes you just kind of do these sessions and you're like, I'm not quite sure if anyone's out there. So good morning to everyone that's saying good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Love it. So, I think a few people know us already, but Luann, do you want to do just a quick intro, if that's all right?
Yeah, good morning. So I'm Luann Wise. I'm a marketer, have been for a long time now, working in agencies, clients, and running my own consultancy business. It'll be my 10th business birthday later this year. And I have a really great mix of working directly with some clients, supporting them, and doing training as well. Something I've done since last time we spoke, Andy, was to launch my new LinkedIn learning course, which is on social media for B2B, which is packed full of lots of content, lots of tools, resources. Content Cal is in there as well. So that's kind of what I've been up to recently.
Love it. Just quick tech check. Can you see the slides as they're going through, Luann?
I can, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Cool. A few people might know me already, but I'm Andy, one of the founding team of Content Cal, and it's now become a monthly thing that we try and encompass all of everything that's happening in the world of social and digital, because that's what I'm passionate about and like to geek out about. So all of the updates, the changes, the trends, all of the reports I end up reading out the course of the month. And basically this session is designed for you so that you don't have to trawl through as many boring reports, which are typically 90% waffle and 10% goodness.
Yeah.
So that you can get all of the insights in this session. And it's got a lot better since having Luann being part of this, because we've got two people's perspectives on it. So anyway, let's dive into it. Like always, we start these sessions with a focus on the digital changes and the trends, and then we're going to go into the specific changes at a network by network level. So to start with this, you can read these stats on the screen, but now social media is being used by about 3.5 billion people, have access to social media across the world, growing at 12%, which is just insane. Sometimes those numbers are hard to comprehend, but when you think that nearly 500,000 users were added in the last month alone, you realize quite how insane this is. There is just no communications platform that's getting anywhere close to the power that social media holds for our business. And talking about the power, this is a report from our good friends Hootsuite. So, but they do some really good reports, to be fair to them. So two elements of this. On the left-hand side, it's about where are marketers looking at increasing their spend from a social media perspective, what they're going to be investing more in. So Instagram leads the chart, Facebook, YouTube actually has jumped up. You'll often have heard me waffle on about the fact that YouTube is massively underutilized as part of a content strategy. It's nice to see more marketers are starting to consider YouTube. You're going to see some points relating to video later on in this session. And of course, TikTok takes that as well. But interestingly, despite all of the hype around TikTok, marketers are still not quite sure about it, and they're still not leveraging a huge amount of investment. Investment's pretty much still in the main core platforms. Any thoughts on that I haven't covered already, Luann?
Yeah, social media increasing partly because of the state the world is in, and some other traditional channels have been kind of taken away from us. I think it's always interesting, and we can see this, and we'll talk about Clubhouse later on. New things come and we try and test them, but we don't always want to shift away from what's working, what we're comfortable with, where we know our clients are, which is those core platforms. So I'm really pleased, and we asked a very quick similar poll on this in our LinkedIn event as well, that actually there's no talk of, I haven't seen any talk of decreasing investment in social. It's either staying the same or increasing. And I think that's really quite important, but to do it in the right ways. These stats are always great, but I always look at them and go, is that for B2B? Is that B2C? Is that by sector? You know, I'd love more breakdowns on it, but as overall patterns, I think this is positive start to the year.
Yeah, I'm with you. And kind of leads on to what is shown on the right-hand side of this chart, actually, is like, what social platforms do you consider the most effective for reaching your business goals? And it's kind of jives with what you just said, Luann, is that, you know, businesses are still, they're thinking about the platforms that have delivered the results in the past, and it's not just going all over to the shiny and new platforms. Yeah. Definitely worth experimenting and having a proportion of time around experimentation. Clubhouse, TikTok, everything else, we'll cover them later in our session, but actually just not forgetting there are core platforms that deliver consistent results, so not getting distracted by the shiny and new.
Yeah.
So we've already covered the learnings. This is part of this Hootsuite report, but it was a specific segment by this company called Analytic Partners, but I thought it was really interesting that they said multi-channel campaigns, so content campaigns that not just exist on Facebook, but supplemented by Instagram and blogs and emails and stories or whatever, show a 35% effectiveness improvement for each channel you add over single channel campaigns. So what I've just said there is thinking about whenever we're putting out content or any form of campaigns, thinking about how we can maximize the reach of that across multiple channels. Sometimes it seems an obvious statement to make, but I hadn't seen the statistic as clear as that before, where, you know, you have a 35% effectiveness increase for each channel you involve. I thought that was actually quite a startling statistic. Any thoughts on that, Luann?
Yeah, I think I can't remember which session it was we shared. You shared a slide from Hootsuite's Global Digital Report on the kind of the crossover and the overlaps between different platforms and how people are using more than one platform. Hootsuite released their latest report yesterday afternoon. So if anyone does want to deep dive into the stats, we can share a link. But there's a great slide on that, kind of who's using which platforms in combination. So important to know which ones your audiences are using and be testing and trying things out at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a huge audience overlap across platforms. So making sure you give yourself the best chance of reaching those by multiplying channels is the thing. Forgotten demographics. We often talk about, how it's all about younger generations and how that's where the spend is going. And there are some points to talk to that point later on. But actually, it's really encouraging to see that even if we are targeting a slightly different demographic with our business, over 70% of 55 to 64-year-olds have bought something online in the last month. So encouraging, really encouraging. And the fact that actually this shift to digital, you mentioned, Luann, about like changing the shift in e-commerce behaviors already, the shifting landscape. And that's playing to the fact that we shouldn't exclude anyone as part of our digital marketing activity, right?
I love this stat, and I'll tell you the reason it made me smile was because thinking about my own mum, she used to keep sending me links and get me to do the buying online. And I wonder if it's almost, 9 months into lockdown, people like me are going, Mum, just do it yourself, and that they've had to do it. And maybe this stat as well was because it was around Christmas and we had to do all of our shopping online last year. But, just the fact that I think, again, if you look in the Hootsuite report, and I've put a link to it in the chat now, the biggest area of growth is actually the baby boomers getting into social and online as well. So I think that's really nice.
Yeah, really encouraging. I love it. Brand purpose continues to be crucial. We talk a lot about this, and sometimes this is a bit of a flawed bit of research, right? Because if I asked anyone who's on this session today to say, would you prefer to buy from a brand that you agree with and you agree with their values, or someone that you don't agree with? Naturally, you'd say, oh yeah, I prefer to buy with a brand that you agree with. Yet most of us still go to Amazon and buy all of our products from there. If you're anything like me, because you're driven by financial gain or convenience, right? But still, irrespective of the slightly flawed nature of this data, I still think it's worthwhile considering, because especially the top one is that people will prefer to buy from a brand or have a preference for a brand that operates according to its values and principles. So basically living what it says it does. So two examples that come to mind in this, I think, and they've used social as a platform for this, is Patagonia. They obviously talk about the circular economy, so that the clothing brand, I'm sure you're aware already, but they talk a lot about the circular economy and the importance of sustainability. And lo and behold, they've become the first brand to actually start selling second-hand clothes across their digital websites. So that's important. It's about living their values, and they've they've used social media as a platform to really hammer that point home and have seen fantastic growth as a result. Other example of that would be Brewdog. I think we've spoken about this on previous sessions. You know, their emphasis towards sustainability, they're absolutely living it, and it feels like you're on a journey with James, the CEO. You know, you feel like you're on the journey because they've made their purpose really, really human driven, and it actually has helped like cut away all kind of other glitzy parts of the brand, and you really can feel like what they stand for and helps you connect. So despite some of the flawed element of this data collection, I do love this, and I think there is absolutely a truism in it, if you agree, Luann.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's even as a marketer, and these are the terms that we're using, you read a lot of research around, you know, brand, and I do brand research and things like that. And I think, you know, taking the marketer hat off as a, you know, I am still one person, you know, do I specifically search for brands, or am I just searching for answers to questions? But I think what's coming out in the research that I'm reading at the moment, and we've talked about, I have so many examples of brands who are losing their clients because of poor customer service. Comes back to aligning values. You know, this has always happened, but I think it's even worse during this current situation where we're looking for answers and trying to get, you know, answers and resolve issues and things like that. There was another piece of research that I read earlier in the week from Gartner and their CMO survey that said what they're really doing right now, and the best marketing strategies going forward, is to really kind of lean into your existing customers, focus on them, keep your loyalty, try and sell more to them. That's kind of the strategy that's working for many businesses right now when we're in this climate. So absolutely, your brand and loyalty and purpose and values and how you make your customers think and feel and all that word of mouth recommendation we talk about is actually crucial right now.
100% agree. It's a great point, actually. So the return of organic marketing. So this is a B2B focused stat. So Luann and I are all over things like this. Content Marketing Institute produced this. But the key thing is the top 5 here are all about organic marketing. In the next slide, I'll give you some data points that really talk to this. But the fact is like when I say the return of organic marketing, I've heard so many times over the last 5 years of doing content, Cal, that social media is a pay-to-play game. Organic doesn't work anymore. In fact, actually, what we've seen as a result of this global situation we're all facing is that actually the power of a community is the thing that will see businesses through this. So if businesses have relied purely on just the kind of temperamental growth within paid advertising, when that gets switched away, what do you have? You have a community at the foundation of that. Businesses have very quickly recognized that, and that's why we're seeing the return of organic marketing. There's some other kind of geopolitical factors that are affecting this that we'll talk about in the next slide. But yeah, I'm really encouraged to see like B2B marketers invest heavily in content creation, website advancements, digital events, content distribution, all about organic and non-paid. And social media and community building. They are the top 5 criteria rated for 2021 where investment's going to increase. I'm very encouraged. What about you, Luann? I reckon you will be too.
I am, but I would argue that I don't think it ever went away, and I hope it didn't go away for it to return anyway. And maybe part of this return of organic marketing headline is because people got distracted by the new and shiny and went to try things and throw some money at it, and they've gone, no, actually, we need to do the foundations properly, which I'm a big fan of. I often think that you should test things organically before you put money behind it anyway. So getting those basics right. I'm inspired by the fact, and we're proving it right now, I think that events still appears in this list of activity. It does say, digital, in-person and hybrid now, but I'm really pleased that, events have stayed as a marketing and content area as well. So all for it.
Love it. Love it. So final slide on trends that you need to be aware of. I'm going to fire through some of this because this plays into some of the stuff we've already spoken about. 73% are more likely to buy if they watch and explain a video. I guess that talks, that's fairly obvious, I expect, but it kind of talks to the rise in investment in YouTube. And I often talk about that being underutilized. This one is a really interesting one from Gartner, actually. So nearly 3/4 of CFOs are looking to make remote work permanent for all or some employees. Typically, Gartner are responsible for like larger organizations, ones with 200 employees plus. So you can start to see a huge huge behavior shift in how people are going to be consuming content, because naturally people are going to be at home, and that is, according to this bunch of CFOs, people are going to be spending, even post-pandemic, whenever that is, the world of work will be changed forever, which means more people have more time to consume content, be it webinars, podcasts, spending time on Clubhouse, whatever it is. And that really talks to why business to business brands are investing heavily into organic content, because there's going to be much more available time for that to be consumed. So I think that's fascinating. Below, 71% of people prefer buying from companies with similar values. We've already covered that, but that was just backed up by another survey. Online video consumption's doubled. So if you want a statistic, it's doubled to, it's nearly 7 hours per week across online video. Once again, backing up that whole kind of YouTube discussion we were talking about earlier. And the last two statistics on this slide are absolutely killer. Consumers under 34 account for over a third of purchasing in the UK. So we've already spoken about baby boomers and the rise of forgotten demographics and how they have to move to digital now for the purchasing behavior. But seriously, younger demographics are powering a third of spending in the UK. That is massive. There's some other data that we'll talk about later from Snapchat that is really interesting, that talks to that point. But the final stat, I think, frames everything we're going to be talking about coming into all of these changes that are happening across these social media channels. So 54% of e-commerce is expected to be driven by mobile in 2021. Massive. So the way that people will be purchasing products is going to be changed forever, and we're going to see a huge shift of that in the course of this year. So yeah, look out for that. Most popular social networks, I show this every time. This is still October data, to be honest, because we haven't seen an update for this year. Facebook's still the largest by monthly active users, followed by YouTube. No massive surprises on there, to be honest. You might go, oh, where's LinkedIn? They're about 350 to 400 million monthly active users. Still massive, but doesn't quite make the top 15. So, Luann, over to you. Let's dive into LinkedIn first.
Let's talk LinkedIn, yeah. So you've got some great stats in this slide deck this month, because we've talked about how this is a question that we are both always asked around what is the best time to post on social media platforms. Any Q&A, you always get asked this question. And I think we've got this for each platform. I think if you are ever looking for a guideline, here's a great guideline. 5 times a week, it says for LinkedIn here, avoid weekends, in the mornings. My advice when you see this kind of data and these kind of articles is to use it, take it in, the same as all the trends, and see how relevant it is for you and your business. But for me, the answers to any of these questions are always in your own data and what works for you, and going into your own insights and understanding your own audiences. If you want guidelines, these are absolutely great. If I was to summarize all of those slides, my answer would be consistent. Show up consistently so that people just know that you're around and you keep your visibility, more important than ever. We keep saying that, but you've got to stay visible. And I think the biggest mistake people make around this kind of whole times to post and when to post is overthinking it, but not posting when you've got your head down doing loads of work, and then going, oh, my pipeline looks a bit empty for end of Feb. I need to do loads of stuff. That's yo-yo marketing, as some people will call it. That makes life so much harder for you. Set your own best times to post that work for you, that work for the platforms, that work for your audience, and just keep showing up and telling your story in a drip feed way. So great stats in here, but that's kind of my caveat of the whole slide deck.
Absolutely bang on.
The next slide is some LinkedIn benchmarks. And again, I think all of these stats are really useful to either reinforce what you're doing or to understand what is working. I don't need to read them all out to you, but there has been a drop in organic reach for company page posts. LinkedIn, we've talked about over recent months, have made a lot of new features available for company pages, which I think is great. But also, my answer to this is that actually the power of LinkedIn is in your personal profiles. You as an individual, your employees as individuals, because people do business with people and they have conversations with people. If we think of Content Cal, we think of Andy because he's our contact. He comes to our mind before the logo. does. So we're more likely to send a message to you directly. That's who our relationship is with, versus a logo. So company page is important. You do need one. There is growth in that area, but still don't be distracted from your personal profile and what you can do. And the data that's coming through from this is around click-through rates are increasing, engagement is increasing, more conversations, more content, bigger ROI in certain sectors. Conversations is what social media is all about. We shouldn't just be going, here's my stuff, read it. We should be trying to invite questions, ask questions, create dialogue. That's the social part that we should be doing. These are tools to drive conversations and drive business. So I love these benchmarks, but just keep the social in social is my answer to them.
Yeah, I'm with you. Encouraging to see, fantastic organic reach still happening. Yeah. And so, some really good points. Yeah. And, well, let's go on to some new updates.
Yeah, some new updates. And this one is quite exciting, is around LinkedIn newsletters. I saw this on my profile, the feature finally appear a few weeks ago. So you can create articles on LinkedIn, similar to blogs, but you can also create newsletters. I've actually been creating a newsletter for one of my clients who is a LinkedIn influencer. She was named as one of the top voices last year. We do a monthly newsletter. In terms of creating them, it's very similar to creating an article. You click on create an article and it gives you the option, is it an article or is it a newsletter? Look and layout exactly the same, but the difference is that people can subscribe to them, and when you share a newsletter, it goes straight into their email inboxes to say, here's the latest newsletter. So a great feature, great tool, but with any newsletter, if you're doing email newsletters already, you know this, have a plan for why you're doing them and the frequency of doing them and the value that you can add to your audience before you dive into the feature. But yeah, it's a great feature, and I'm writing one later today.
Amazing. Love that.
This is a new feature, launch of post controls. They announced this, I think, kind of Friday US time. So we got it kind of Monday morning. I shared it myself. New post controls around when you do a post, you can now decide, does it go to anyone on LinkedIn? Does it just go to your connections? And do you want to switch off comments? I think this is an interesting one. And there's a couple of comments in here about customer service and do people switch off commenting and private messaging? I'm very much of the opinion that if you're going to post something on social, you should know that it's going to be visible if you're posting it publicly. I think you should always be conscious that it could be screenshot and shared with other people. If it needs to be private, then take it private. I think it's quite hard to kind of go, I only want this group of people to see it and not this group in such a large group of people. It's, if you need that level of control, don't post it, would kind of be my answer to that. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm a bit 50-50 on this because it's nice because it encourages people to voice themselves without fear of retribution. But at the same side, it, like you mentioned this comment earlier about like putting the social in social, you're actually removing the social. It becomes a broad platform rather than conversation. So yeah, I think I'm 50-50, but it's nice because if it encourages more people to be more confident eventually getting on the platform, similar move as Twitter. Yeah, just to see if it drives at least more content on the platform and makes people feel a little more comfortable and empowered that they can say something. Yeah, I think it's, we've got some stats later on and around private messaging, and I think if you're in any doubt about posting it privately, then just post it privately to people and one-to-one and drive conversations that way. Not everything you do on social needs to be. I share this stat in training of, you don't need to share office banter with 700 million people. If you think it's that kind of content, don't post it. But yeah, if it makes people feel it's a safe place, then all for it. Agreed. Launching product pages. LinkedIn talked about this late December. It's rolling out. I haven't seen it on any of the product company pages I've got access to at the moment, and I've got a few. This is being able to create specific kind of sub areas within your company page for your products and adding more product information. I'm going to wait and see on this one because, as I've already said, I think the power of LinkedIn is in personal pages. This feels like it's trying to get you to replicate more of your own website and information. Probably wouldn't do any harm to fill the boxes in,
but I'm not sure how much effort you might need to put into it when this is a social networking tool and about relationships. For me, product detail is kind of further down the funnel and the conversation time than needing to have it posted on a page.
On the flip side to that, that's why it's good to have a couple of views, because I'm really excited about it, because obviously a B2B product company, and the idea of these product pages also is to like help generate testimonials from customers or product reviews and that kind of thing, where typically a business would have to ask a customer or a user to go onto one of the review sites like G2 Crowd or Capterra, like typical software review sites. Now LinkedIn makes it much easier if someone's using your product, be like, oh, would you mind just leaving us a testimonial on our product page or a review? Can be quite a nice way to generate that. So I would say good for businesses, but will it drive significant growth? No, it won't do.
And I can't remember what it was called before, but they did have something very similar to this before. And some businesses had collected loads of testimonials and data and have populated their pages, and then LinkedIn withdrew that feature. So maybe that's why I'm slightly nervous about it, because, you know, to put all your eggs into a platform that you don't have control over, use it, but maybe make sure that you get hold of those testimonials and stick them on your own website as well.
Indeed. Yeah.
LinkedIn stories. A question for you, Andy, is, and I've had this conversation with a couple of people, I'm using my mobile far less now that I'm at home all day. You know, I used to use my mobile a lot if I was going to meetings, if I was commuting, I'd have a scroll through, see what was going on. But I think I mentioned when this first launched, you have to go to your mobile to see LinkedIn stories. And I'm doing that less and less. You know, it's there on my desk, but I'm not picking up my mobile quite so much. So I'm not really sure how much LinkedIn stories have taken off. They have added the swipe up links. They're testing ads in it right now. Maybe I feel like I need to wait to be able to go out again before I might use this feature a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, typically LinkedIn is very much a desktop used application rather than mobile. They're typically skewed towards that. So I'm agree with that. For me, I like these kind of things to experiment with. Will it drive significant growth? No, but actually, because LinkedIn, for you and I, at least, Luann, is quite a good platform for us. So I do like the fact of adding links to stories. Does just give us another way to, if you've got a really good piece of content, a blog or whatever, a nice way to direct traffic to that rather than putting it as a post in your feed, or at least mixing it up, because obviously we know links in feed posts in LinkedIn just do nothing. So maybe it provides a bit of an opportunity. Yeah.
So I like it. I'm glad they're developing it, but I'm not rushing to go there. The other thing I'm finding with stories as well is that, you know, if you're working in social media and you have access to lots of pages and you know, company pages, I have to swipe across quite a lot before I can actually see the stories that people are posting, and I find that a little bit frustrating.
Yeah,
as well.
Definitely some usability challenges, that's for sure. So Instagram.
From one platform straight to another. I love the slide, this pink on this one. Best times to post on Instagram. My advice, you know, same thing, won't dwell on this one. 4 or 5 times a week on Instagram. Find the times that work for you. Going back to my comment on mobile, yes, I do go to my mobile for Instagram, but as these stats say, it's probably lunchtime scrolling or late evening scrolling when I've moved away from my desk. My advice on Instagram is that you probably need to have your own best times to post, and you plan around what goes on your feed and what goes in stories as well. We need to almost consider those two as kind of separate plans for what you're doing on Instagram.
Great point.
So I don't know if that relates, I'm guessing it would probably relate to feed, but I would make sure that you have a plan for both around that.
Yeah, it does relate to feed, that's for sure. So yeah, really good point.
Yeah. Reels. I'm not seeing much branded content in my reels, which is quite interesting considering, you know, this is a new feature from Instagram. We're seeing a lot of TikTok content come into it. We've already said about e-commerce, increasingly important on social. So there was no doubt that they were going to put shopping on reels, but I haven't seen too much of it yet. It is something that I'm going to be experimenting with because I do have an e-commerce side hustle myself. So it's something that I need to work on. But yeah, again, it's there. It's new features. They're building on it. I think on your next slide, Andy, the other features that are coming in are audio editing features as well. And we'll talk about audio in a bit because that's a whole nother growth area for 2021.
Yeah, definitely. Lots happening on Reels, actually, just on that point. They've definitely stolen a bit of a march from an e-commerce perspective over TikTok. And yeah, if I kind of jog your memory of that stat I read out earlier, where 54% of commerce is going to be driven from a mobile in 2021. And, this is going to be fundamental to, this is what Facebook and Instagram are thinking about when they're designing these features, to drive a whole kind of content and commerce experience. Look at a piece of content, click on a product tag and it be taken to a shop directly. Fantastic user experience. And that's the thing that's going to drive growth. Right, professional dashboard.
Yeah, again, they're adding new features. I think this is one just this week, isn't it? Yeah. Of giving you more data and more insight. So, they're launching all these new features right now to give us more control, more accessibility, more data, more scheduling tools. So again, I think if you're doing this, try them out. And this is why these sessions are so important, because there's just new features all the time.
This is a bit of hidden release, actually, and it's available for everyone now. You should see it in the top right if you open Insta. It's a nice way just to track your growth. Just some of these things, because there's so much happening all the time, everything can't get the same promotional impact. So really good. If Insta's your thing, you'll definitely see value in that. Tips as to how you can grow, performance, badges you can use. It's a good one. Right, Luann, do you want to take Facebook before we then fire after them?
Yeah. Again, stats 5 times a week on Facebook, which when I did my Facebook Train the Trainer training is absolutely the advice that they gave to us. And yeah, whenever I look at Facebook Insights, maybe it's the clients I work with, but it is varied. Massive dip in the evening when they're not on Facebook. It's kind of early afternoon, browsing after lunch, and then the kind of schoolwork's done, dinner's done, kids are in bed watching telly, and we go back to our phones again and our different devices and scroll on Facebook. So interesting that they say weekends get the highest level of engagement on Facebook. Maybe it's our downtime, it's the way that we're using it. I know that sometimes makes it hard for social media managers thinking that they need to work on a weekend, but as I said earlier, the answer to this is in your own data. Go and have a look at those Facebook Insights by day and by time, and you'll see really obvious trends for yourself.
Yeah, the Saturday and Sunday thing, the weekend, is actually really interesting because we never really considered about any weekend content to schedule. So there's some of this, absolutely use your own data, but if there's some things that this is opening your mind about, definitely use some of this information to test. That's for sure. So I think testing at the weekend might be an interesting one. Right.
It comes back to the patterns in your business, because if you are doing e-commerce, I find in my e-commerce site, people are shopping in the middle of the night and at weekends. So I always try and post at weekends, kind of a few hours before I know that they're going to be online and shopping. So tie that data from your business together with your social media best times to post.
Great point.
Yeah. Fundraising. We saw lots of new options for supporting charities last year, particularly through Instagram as well. So it's great that Facebook have now added this into their stories. We know that it's been harder for charities recently, but we know that people are also doing lots of fundraising and personal fundraising, and any way we can make that easier on the platforms that people are using is good news.
Yeah, incidentally, since they started releasing a load of fundraising tools, I think it was last March, Facebook have cumulatively raised over $100 million for charities and personal endeavors. So there's a lot of criticism that could be levied at Facebook for a lot of reasons, but actually this is really good because charities in the third sector have had an absolute nightmare in the main for the last year. So the fundraising tools they're now offering is absolutely brilliant. So credit to them on that.
Yeah.
Yes, this one.
This is a big one, isn't it? That Facebook, was it in December they were taking out large ads in the national press and fighting against Apple for what this is all meaning. I don't know too much detail behind this apart from it's happening. Facebook aren't happy about what Apple are doing, but they are running a series of webinars on it at the moment. But I don't really know too much about what this is going to mean, whether it's going to actually happen or those details.
So yeah, definitely happening. It's probably another hour-long webinar I could do just on this. Definitely happening. It's going to be I was going to say disastrous, but that's probably a bit extreme. It's going to be a massive challenge for people that are advertising heavily across Facebook's assets, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Because Apple, with the iOS 14 update, is making it very explicit as to how people happy about an app tracking them. So people aren't going to be served the tailored ads anymore. So that's actually poor user experience now, because people are just going to get served ads now that are irrelevant. So if someone decides that they don't want Facebook tracking them, and if they're an iPhone user and on iOS 14, if you say, I don't want Facebook or Insta tracking me, then you're not going to get served tailored ads ultimately. So what that means from a user experience is negative, but obviously it means you're in control of your data. But also for someone that's running advertising, it means your targeting is now going to be messed up, which means that your cost per acquisition is going to go up, and all of your metrics are going to look slightly worse because you're not serving content to as targeted audience anymore. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a real challenge, but if you're doing lots of Facebook advertising, definitely spend more time researching this, more than what we could cover now. So let's move on.
Yes. As it says, new tools if you're advertising cars. Interesting that they've picked that one, but maybe that's a specific area that they're seeing a lot of advertisers in.
It's a big one. Yeah,
it's big for the sector. It's nice to see them doing sector-specific support, I guess, is the answer to this one.
Yeah, no, it's amazing how much, and this I was looking at Facebook data on this, amazing how much car buying is actually done or found through Facebook, which is fascinating for such a high ticket item. But really, they're kind of replicating what you might get on something like Auto Trader on Facebook. So if you're in automotive space, definitely one. But let's go on to this one. This is one of my faves, actually.
Which one's this one?
Yeah,
Groups.
Collab.
Group. I haven't used the Collabs Manager, but groups have had so many more features for group managers and group functionality over the last 12 months. And because I'm a geek, I saw, I was watching Zuckerberg did his quarterly update last night. He posts it all on his own Facebook page. And he said that his 4 key areas of focus for this year were communities, private messaging, commerce tools for small business, and private computing, which will be a whole nother webinar. But just coming back to this communities, this is why people are using Facebook right now, why they're going to it. Love Facebook groups. I don't run a Facebook group, but I'm in many for different reasons. So I think it's a hugely valuable area, and the more tools that they're giving to managers to make them valuable for users is a great thing. Yeah,
and branded Collabs Manager specifically allows businesses. So if you're marketing, whatever product you're marketing, there'll be a whole range of special interest Facebook groups. Say if you're marketing a cleaning product, there'll be a whole load of Facebook groups across Facebook, public ones as well. So you can't find private ones through this, but public groups where it might be like household cleaning, best tips or whatever. But as a cleaning company or selling cleaning products, you want to be able to have your products featured in those groups. So this allows you to find those special interest groups that are applicable to your market, work with the group owner, find ways to collaborate so that you can start to spread your message and start to add value and ultimately drive results from individual specific groups. So really nice targeted marketing strategy you can build through this. It's available now, so I love this one.
Cool.
Just the Facebook pages.
There's changes to Facebook pages, removing likes, focusing more on interaction. We'll see how this goes. The real key to this is that at the moment you have a difference between people liking your page and people following your page. The stats are slightly different, so they're going to be removing the likes. So you need to make sure that people are actually engaging with your page. I think this is great because it's all about content. We know that Facebook tell us that the more interaction there is, the more people are likely to see the content. So it's going to be much more about quality and not that how many times a day you post stuff. It's about the quality and driving engagement. And to do that, again, comes back to the be social, try and be social, invite people to be social. So I'm seeing this as a positive move.
Definitely. I think further to that is they've launched a new kind of Q&A feature as part of that. So that encourages more interaction from your community. And secondly, in your page newsfeed, when you as a page comment on other things, that's going to be given extra priority. So when people are viewing your page, they'll see the interaction that you as a business have left on other pages and other people's posts. So it's actually really encouraging like brands to become much more social, funnily enough, on their page. So yeah, very encouraging.
Cool. Last one from me, and then I'm going to start scanning the questions for you, Andy. Facebook News is coming to the UK. They announced it a couple of days ago that we will have a whole separate area for news. I think this is really interesting because, you know, there is stats around how news has become more important to us recently. How we're accessing it is through social media because the real-time nature of it, but also in terms of what the platforms are doing and how they've had to fight and do so much work to overcome misinformation around many political issues, election issues, things that are going on. So the fact that they're kind of creating this as a whole separate area, I think is positive, and that the work behind the scenes to make sure that what we are seeing is credible, topical, relevant, and up to date is going to drive more people to use these platforms.
Yeah, 100% agree. So, right, yeah, off you go to the chat.
I'm going to the questions, you carry on.
Yeah, I've got 5 minutes. I'm going to fly through some of this because I know it's so easy to overrun. Yeah, so best time to post on Twitter is all about over the course of the week, in once per day in the main working week in lunchtime. That's what Twitter is. Twitter is launching audio spaces, which looks exactly like Clubhouse. We're going to come on to Clubhouse a little bit later. But what I like about that, they've integrated it into fleets. So which is a reminder, Twitter stories, which they launched towards the end of last year. So if there's someone that you follow, you can see from the kind of fleets, which as you can see in the right hand side looks just like an Instagram story in the way it's displayed, is that you can see where someone's hosting an audio space. So if there's someone that you respect and someone you follow, you can go ahead, just click on their little icon at the top, and you can see when they're live in an audio space. So it actually really adds an extra layer of interaction, which I find quite interesting. So rather than like passive consumption of someone's story, you can go a bit deeper. So you can start to listen to what someone's saying live and have some degree of interaction with that. So that does actually start to make social even more immersive. So I'm interested to see what happens with that. I don't think there's anything you need to do with that explicitly right now, but certainly one to keep note of as to the trajectory of social. Now, Pinterest is all about the weekend for Pinterest and all about the evening, which is where obviously people are kind of curating their kind of design ideas, things that they want for dinner, the real kind of like home orientated curation seems to be happening then. For me, Pinterest, I talk about Pinterest quite a lot, but Pinterest are the leading light that we need to look towards for the direction of social in general. Instagram are very much trying to catch up on Pinterest. Pinterest don't have anywhere near the same kind of exposure and volume as Instagram, but they absolutely lead in terms of innovation. This example is a perfect one, whereby they've launched these new augmented reality try-on tools. So in this example here, where someone's found some eyeshadow offered by this organization, where they can now start to try on that eyeshadow in different shades. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see they can save that for inspiration, you know, for later, or they can shop that directly. Now, that is an incredible manifestation of how social commerce should work, where someone can discover new products and services by scrolling someone's feed. Don't forget, stories now exist on Pinterest, so people can learn the story behind the business and create that personal connection that we've been talking about early on in this session. They can then start to find these products that are offered by that seller, try them on, and then make a purchase, all without leaving an app. Now, that for me is the future of social commerce, and we're going to start to see that evolve. YouTube, big one. I love YouTube. As you know, there's a few things you need to know. They're making automatic chapters easier. So if you're doing long form content, it's easier to chop this up to make it better for a user to consume the right things for them. So if there's a long video, whatever it might be, you know, people can skip to chapter 2 where it's focused on, you know, their specific use case. They're launching product tags to video, which is like we saw in Instagram Reels, where it allows people to watch a video and purchase whatever product is being spoken about, once again, into this e-commerce function. Launching hashtag pages. This is an important one for anyone who's on YouTube. So you can look at the most trending hashtags and the things that are most popular. So we can start to build some inspiration around the content that we can create. And YouTube Shorts is like their approach to TikTok. It's driving massive views for YouTube creators, but is only available for people with over 10,000 subscribers, which is out of the reality of most mere mortals. But best time to post on YouTube is all about posting at the end of the week, ready for the weekend, because that's where the viewing happens. TikTok, they've launched a bit of an award where they've given the best small business use of TikTok to this profile called Lucky to Live Here. I wanted to flag this, so go, if you have a TikTok account, go look at this up, go look at this, and you can look at it through desktop or mobile. But it's a really interesting small business use of a real estate agent using TikTok, where actually you think that this has worked really well. It's driven great growth for them as a business, but it's got no one dancing in it. So it's nice to think that actually there are different users of TikTok which can be popular, where you don't actually have to really expose yourself too much, because there's no chance I would be on TikTok, for instance, because no one wants to see me dancing. But this kind of opportunity and this application is definitely realistic for a lot of other small businesses. To that same vein, they've launched a small business resource center. Just Google that if you're interested in trying to get some more inspiration about how you could make TikTok work for your small business. And TikTok has absolutely surged past Facebook, now used on average by about 20 hours per month in the UK. By contrast, Facebook is used 16 hours per month on average across the UK. So it's nearly, it's a significant amount more on TikTok. They're heading towards 1 billion users. So definitely one to keep an eye on. They've also launched a TV app. And I think this is a really smart move, because it now allows for much more casual consumption. Same way that we've seen an explosion in people watching YouTube on their TVs and smart devices, because YouTube lends itself to longer form watching and kind of more passive viewing as you keep on getting served more and more content. Same story with TikTok, which isn't the same case for any other social platform, because it's very much intentional that you're scrolling and clicking on stuff. Whereas things like TikTok and YouTube, you sit back and get served content. So that's a really significant step. And I think that's where I see TikTok's growth coming from. And they've also launched a new Q&A feature, which, it's fairly obvious what that is, but they're encouraging more audience interaction. I have to go to Google, actually, just for interest of time. It was a small thing. WhatsApp, there's one thing that is worthwhile knowing, that they've launched WhatsApp carts to turn WhatsApp, if you have a business account on WhatsApp, into a full e-commerce tool. So now I'm not sure if you've seen this before, but you can have a little kind of WhatsApp chat on your website. So if you have a WhatsApp business account, which allows people to interact with your business, clearly, but it also allows you to have like catalogs available within WhatsApp. So people can just simply open their WhatsApp, message a business, look at the catalogs and the products that are available from that business, and then they can now start to order those products directly through WhatsApp. Once again, making a really nice, slick user experience where they don't actually have to leave the app that they're in to make a purchase. And for a business, fantastic way to speed up and smooth the purchasing process for potential customers. It's available now. Yeah, WhatsApp for business. So yeah, really interesting one. So Snapchat, I'm actually just going to go with some statistics on this. So how am I doing for time? Yeah, another 2 minutes and then we'll go to Q&A. Huge amount of people it's reaching in the UK. 90% of 13 to 24-year-olds in the UK are being reached by Snapchat. So if you're marketing to a younger demographic, we don't talk about Snapchat as much, but they are there. Interestingly, didn't know this, it's the largest generation in history. Who'd have thunk it? So that was news to me. 249 million daily active users, loads. 60% open to paying more for sustainable clothes. Bit of a random point, but actually I thought I included this because it actually talks to what we spoke about earlier about brand purpose, and it's a real kind of manifestation of that. Lots of people engaging with augmented reality, because the fact is it doesn't feel like augmented reality. Like in that Pinterest example, you're trying on some eyeshadow. It doesn't really feel like, oh, this is augmented reality. It feels pretty natural. So that's why so many people engage with it. Lots of people making purchases, once again, talking to this kind of change of mobile e-commerce behavior. And because Snapchat's used by the younger demographic, it's a great barometer to look at to see what's going to happen with the other social platforms which lag behind it, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Lots of people watching video, and virtual try-ons are the most popular format. So if you are in any form of retail business where you are providing clothes, makeup, things like that, things that people could try on, that is incredibly popular in Snapchat. Same implementation that we saw on Pinterest. Clubhouse, not much to say other than the fact it's overrated. I've got some spare invites. If anyone wants one, drop a message. You can have them. Yeah. Look at that. It's a fire sale. Luhan and I index. It's fine, and I think it's interesting. It is interesting, and it's certainly something that Me personally, I'll be creating more content on Clubhouse as an experiment, not spending too much time. But they've raised a whole new load of funding. They're now valued at $1 billion. So, and they're now also thinking about creator payments. We could probably do a whole separate session on Clubhouse, interested in other people's views. I think it's a really nice application of how people can consume content. I found myself replacing my podcast listening with Clubhouse, but I don't know whether that's just for novelty value, because there's nothing better to do in an evening right now than to sit in a house and listen to some people chat rather than go outside and do some fun stuff. So who knows whether this growth will continue.
I think that's absolutely my answer on Clubhouse is, has it kicked off because we're in lockdown and we want to hear people and try something different? Would it have been as talked about at any other time? Perhaps not.
Yeah, so that is interesting. But like with anything, right, there is for the people that are getting there, who are on Clubhouse now, who actually think, you know, long form audio first is good for them, there is an opportunity to drive fantastic growth right now, because it's in that super growth stage. It's like how you might wish that you were on Twitter in 2008 or 2007. You'd be like, oh, if I was on Twitter then I'll be massive. So that's the kind of thing we might want to think about with Clubhouse. We made it.
Have a drink.
There we go. Sorry, overran by 5. But so yeah, if anyone, the calls to action at the end, if anyone wants a bit of a strategy session, I'll send a follow-up emails on this. So I've started doing free drop-in strategy sessions where if anyone wants to start applying this kind of stuff to their own business, I do that for free, doing it twice a week. So you can just drop in with me there. I'll share this in the follow-up email too. Drop us a note if you've enjoyed it. We always love to hear from you. So we always appreciate a shout out. And we've actually started to get organized about this. Wednesday, 24th of Feb, 11 a.m. is the next one. You'll get all of this in the follow-up email. But thank you for making this, the biggest one we've done yet. And we're going to continue delivering on them. And if there's anything else that we can do better in future, please do let us know. But that's, yeah. How is chat looking, Luann?
Chat is awesome. As you've said before, lots of thank yous coming in now. So thank you for being there. Lots of people answering each other's questions, which is always brilliant. Lots of questions about which social media management tool, Andy, but you don't even need to go in there because everyone's answering Content Cal. So thank you for being the advocates in the room, which is great. A few comments earlier on about disagreeing with the recommended times to post, but disagreeing because they're looking at their own insights, trying their own things, which is brilliant. As someone else said, you know, look at your own data, take the guidelines, try and test things out, and that some people are having success over weekends as well. Do we have a 9 to 5 anymore? Every day is just the same, isn't it? Specific questions around the LinkedIn newsletters. Yes, it is rolling out. You may not have it yet. You may not get a notification. Just try and go in and write an article and see if it's in there as the drop down, but it is only for personal pages right now. I'm not seeing that you can create newsletters as a company. So maybe do it as your MD or a key person in the organization and then getting other people to share it. A couple of comments around, I'll ask you this, Andy, WhatsApp and their updated privacy terms, and that some people are moving away from WhatsApp. Yeah,
well, this is ironic, isn't it? Because WhatsApp, we're always we've been bought by Facebook, but we're very much, on our own. That's always, I was going to say a naughty word, but that's always rubbish. When someone says that, when they get bought by another company and say, oh no, we'll live by our own terms, nonsense. It'll evolve, it'll erode in some time. So yes, privacy is not the same as it once was on WhatsApp. So yes, I agree with that. It's a good point. I think there's also an element where, and it's the same with the kind of iOS update, where we need to kind of reconcile with ourselves to go, what level of risk are we exposing ourselves to? And this is a very personal preference here, so I'm not going to speak for anyone else. But for me personally, I don't really care how much Facebook has on me, because they're not going to. I can't do anything with the data. I'd rather get the stuff that I'm interested in than anything else. So I'm cool with that. Same, no one's got any really important data. So I'm not too worried, but there'll be a whole load of privacy experts that are far more intelligent than me that will tell me that I'm talking nonsense. So I'm not that concerned, to be honest.
I agree, and it almost comes back to the point I made earlier, that if you're posting things that you're not comfortable that anyone could see, or screenshot and share with someone, don't post it. You are in control of what you are posting on social media. So just check your privacy settings. Don't post your home address and telephone number if you don't want people to have it. Yes, there are these issues out there, and I take it with the same vein as Andy, and I'm not sharing anything that I'm not comfortable sharing or being served information about.
Love it. Yeah, I've just got a random thought, just seeing that someone started a bit of a trend on the chat saying that actually connect with me and here's my LinkedIn and stuff. So that is awesome. I was just thinking, actually, if I put out a post on LinkedIn in a second, and if everyone can comment on that with a link to their profile, that'll be the best way that everyone can look at each other's profiles and we can all connect. I can't think of any better kind of community way to build a community off the back of that. So I'll put that out straight away after this, and just share your LinkedIns, and hopefully everyone can connect with each other and we can all learn from each other. So yeah, cool. Let's do that.
Let's be social.
Yes. Yeah. Let's do it. Put
the social into social media today.
Indeedy. Any other questions?
Just one more that I think is probably just worth a good closing comment because of the situation we're in. If your business is closed right now, what should you be doing on social media?
Well, right.
My answer. Yeah, sure.
You go first. You go first.
Right. Mine was, as I said, stay visible. Don't disappear. Keep your audience up to date with what's going on. Tell them that you can't wait to be back soon. Give them advice and tips of what they can do if they can't access your services. Just don't disappear. It's really tough right now for businesses, particularly if you've had to close, but just stay visible, stay in front of your audience, let them know that you're there for them and that you can't wait to see them again when you can reopen.
Yep, I can't add anything more to that. And that's all you can do. And yeah, invest, like we said earlier, invest in a community, because a community doesn't go away. And it's a perfect example of what's happening here, is that if we can get more people to connect and talk to each other and find ways to nurture a community, then when things turn around, we have people that can help support us when we need to get up and going again. And there is nothing like social media to do that. So yeah, great question.
That's it. Just lots of people being really positive and answering each other's questions and as you said, connecting. So I think we've answered everything in a record session.
Amazing, and finished within an hour. So yes. Thank you. Yeah, the session really is made by people in the chat. So I'm really hoping actually that we can get lots of people connecting with each other and lots more conversations happening. And as I said, I'll share out my calendar. So, for who wants a deep dive on this kind of stuff, you can do that with me. I'll share Luann's details because, as you can tell, she knows a thing or two about social media. So, so the more people you know, more people you speak to, the more perspectives you get, and the better we all get together. So with that, thank you again. Have a lovely rest of the week. And I'm going to go drink a glass of water. So, right. Thank you, Luann. You've been excellent. And I love you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.